The best countries in the UFC. In today's video, I'm going to be going through the best countries in the UFC based on how good the fighters in the country are, of course. Yeah, I feel like in the UFC, the best country kind of shifts as like the time goes on. And I feel like it's a little bit different now than it was back in the day. I feel like back in the day, it was mostly dominated by just Americans, but I feel like things shift around. So the placement might surprise you guys. I'm going to name 7 of the best countries in order from worst to best. So let's get straight into the video. Before I start, let me just give an honorable mention to this country who didn't make the list. The beautiful Nigerian flag behind me. Shout out people like Israel Adesanya, Kamaru Usman, Sadiq Yusuf, and Kedrine Ezechuku. Not a lot of people in the UFC are Nigerian, but the very few that were ended up touching the belt, etc., getting ranked, etc. So once more Nigerian fighters come in, just watch that. I might have to. You feel me? Like, I don't want to scare people. Like, bruh, I'll cut down to 155 and just whoop everyone there. You hear me? Anyways, starting off with the number 7 spot, we got Mexicano. And I'm going to shout out the names like Brandon Moreno, Alexa Grasso, Yair Rodriguez, Arena Aldana, Lazy Boy, Raul Rosas Jr. All these fighters are Mexican and they're very tough and they're very talented. Of course, there was a point in time, actually a 3-champ era from Yair Rodriguez, Alexa Grasso, and Brandon Moreno, which is crazy. All of them had a belt at like a similar time. You know, even though Yair had an interim belt, like you could all look at them and say they all had belts, which is very good for Mexico. Of course, now none of them have belts, but it's one of those scenarios where I still got to acknowledge them for being very talented, and they still made it to the top of their division. They still got that shot. So I feel like Mexicans in general, just their fight style, I swear this might sound cliche, but a lot of Mexicans fight similar in the way they would kind of like step forward, bite down their mouthpiece, and just sling and bang with you. Of course, they excel greatly in boxing. We got people like Canelo, but in the UFC, they're making their mark too. So I feel like it would be criminal not to put a country like Mexico in a top 7 list, because Mexico, they're the country to beat. Mexico definitely has some of the best elite fighters on the planet. Next up on number 6 spot, I'm gonna put the land down under. By this I mean New Zealand and Australia, because some of them very similar. Some of them are Australian but train in New Zealand gyms and vice versa. So I'm just gonna add them in the whole category. The reason they're gonna be number 6 though is because I'm not gonna put them higher than number 6, because I feel like I'm kind of cheating with them because I'm getting them 2 countries in one, so they have stacked fighters. These fighters consist of Volkanovski, Kai Kara-France, Dan Hooker, Israel Adesanya, JDM, Robert Whittaker, and Tai Tuivasa. These people are crazy. Of course, some of them were at the pinnacle of their division, like Volkanovski, like Izzy, like Whittaker. They all have the undisputed title. Then you have people like Kai Kara-France and Dan Hooker, who's always been like around the top 5 of their ranks, showing that they're still game. Of course, Tai Tuivasa had a fall off. Of course, he's still ranked, but it kind of sucks seeing someone like Tai have such a great run and then like kind of mediocre. Then you got someone like JDM, who's just right there in the title picture soon. Probably a fighter too could get him a title shot. So I feel like the land down under in general is just filled with like talented fighters. Like it's filled with great potential and great veterans. So there's some people in this who I named are probably going to retire in a couple years or something, and there's some people I named who have a future in the division. Either way, you're going to see a lot of New Zealand or Australian flags no matter where you are in the UFC, because they're going to keep coming, they're going to keep fighting. I do think they're one of the more talented countries that people don't really like to acknowledge. So yeah, shout out to Land Down Under. They have some of the best fighters on the planet. Now we're in the top 5. In the number 5 spot, I got Georgia. Of course you got Giga, of course you got Garam, but the people we actually care the most about are Merab Dvalishvili, Ilia Topuria, 2 people who are champions from Georgia. Georgia is not like similar to Nigeria. Georgia is not like a high population of fighters, but they made champion. It kind of reminds me of when Izzy and Usman were champion, like small population, but they still hit the pinnacle and the champions. They had a long reign. I don't know if Merab is going to have a long reign. I feel like Ilia has a very good chance of having a long reign, because I feel like Ilia is very well rounded in boxing and wrestling and grappling. Merab has a kind of like a one-man style, if that makes sense. Like he kind of has the same style every fight, but that style relies on him just outworking them and just showing him he has more dog in them. That style can take him pretty far. It took people like Khabib very far when he had that one style that he go to every time. The difference between Khabib and Merab though is I feel like Khabib is a lot better of a wrestler, etc., etc. And I feel like Merab is like not the most technical, but he kind of just dogs it out. Unfortunately for Merab, he has someone like Umar in his division who's coming up, who I feel like is a really dangerous fight for him. But other than that, Georgia they're so slept on, because like I said, I feel like if you're a small population, you still hit the pinnacle, and you have multiple fighters doing it. It shows that there's something about that country specifically. So I'm gonna say Georgia is a top 5 country in the UFC, because not a lot of people can stop these Georgians, bro. I think Ilia is gonna go ahead and beat Max Holloway. Like that might be a hot take. I really don't. I think it's the case though. I feel like Max Holloway stylistically just matches up perfectly for someone like Ilia, who excels in boxing but also can wrestle and wrestle. Like I said, Merab might not have a long reign but if Merab beats Umar, chat, let me say this: if Merab can beat Umar Nurmagomedov, I don't see Merab losing to a soul. Like, I'll be real, I don't see Merab losing to anyone else in that division, because he's already won against like the best striker in Sugar Sean. If he beats Umar, he beat the best wrestler. at that point, I don't see anyone like giving him a harder fight. I feel like he just mauls everyone after that. So Merab has a chance to be great, and then Ilya also has a chance to be great. So Georgia, top 5 for sure. Coming in at the number 4 spot, this might be a surprise because this is such a stacked country. I got Brazil, man. I got Brazil. We got people like Alex Pereira, Alexandre Pantoja, Charles Oliveira, Diego Lopez, Gilbert Burns. The list goes on and on and on. Brazilians are kind of a staple in the UFC. Back in the day, they had people like Silva, Glover, JDS, all these other guys who are all talented. And then nowadays, they still have talented fighters. I just feel like Brazil kind of took like a, I'm not going to say a hit, but like, maybe back in the day, Brazilians were a little bit better because like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has been a thing all around since Royce Gracie in the UFC. So we've seen Brazil evolve. We've seen Brazil take a little bit of decline. But no matter what, Brazil's always going to be a top 5 country in the UFC just because how much Brazilians are actually in the UFC. There's just a high number of Brazilians. You got like Brojalo as well. You got Prates. You got all these guys. The whole fighting nerds. Gene Silva. Majority of them are Brazilian. Or all of them are Brazilian. So yeah, it just shows that Brazil is crazy. Of course, you had people like even Amanda Nunes back in the day. So Brazil always had good fighters, like in general. But I feel like nowadays they're still stacked because there's still a lot of them. Like I said, this is one of the highest populations of fighters in the UFC, Brazil. So it's like kind of different from like Georgia and Nigeria because Georgia and Nigeria had like low population, but they had people touch the pinnacle. Brazil has a high population. They also have people touch the pinnacle. But I just feel like it's a little bit less impressive if you have a higher population, but not all of them are having the opportunity to be champions. But I feel like there's still a lot of people with potential. I think Brojala has potential. Could he be champion? I don't know. It's kind of hard given that division, but he'll be in the top 5, stuff like that. You have people like Pereira who's running the division, running through everyone. Pereira hasn't won against like the hardest competition, but the competition he has won against, he's running through them. When I say he hasn't won through the hardest competition, I'm not saying he's ducking. I'm just saying he's not fighting the hardest competition at light heavyweight right now, which is Ankalaev. But when that fight happens, if he beats him, Brazil on top, Brazil's going to go skyrocketing up this list. So I feel like Brazil in general, they have like just people made to fight. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they have the best Jiu-Jitsu artists. They have the best strikers, the most powerful punchers. Brazil is just an action-packed country, so I have to put Brazil in the top 4. Now we're in the top 3. To be ahead of Brazil, you have to have some stacked fighters. This one might be a hot take. For number 3 spot, I do have England. I feel like English fighters are crazy. I feel like they're talented. We got people like Leon Edwards. We got Aspinall. We got Arnold Allen. We got Paddy Pimblett. We got Lerone Murphy, MVP, Nathaniel Wood. This one, I could see people putting Brazil up this one, but with this one, I see potential. Like, I really see potential with someone like Arnold Allen. I even see potential with someone like Paddy Pimblett. I know Paddy is like one of those things where people are like, oh, he sucks. And I thought Paddy sucked until like the Bobby Green fight kind of impressed me. I think Paddy's not that bad. And of course, we have people like Leon Edwards, who's out of the title picture now. But I wouldn't doubt Leon, like maybe gets another title shot or another go at the title if he beats someone like JDM or Ian Gary, which I do think he could beat. Then, of course, we have Tom Aspinall. I don't know how great Tom Aspinall can be. Technically, I kind of see him as a champion. I really do see him as like a heavyweight champion. I know people say Jones is a heavyweight champion. I think Aspinall is better, and I think Aspinall is getting ducked for a reason. There's a reason Jones doesn't want to fight him. So that being said, I do think England has a lot of potential, and England's like one of the best. So I am going to say England's top 3. Listen, Brazil and England, you can interchange them because I think Brazil's like stacked too. Matter of fact, like looking back at it, I actually might switch them. Can I do that mid-video? Is that cheating? Either way, Brazil and England, both great fighters, both great countries, but I really feel like maybe Brazil has a slight edge. Like I said, 50-50. Argue about it down in the comments. I don't really care. All right, now we're in the top 2 countries in the UFC today, and at the number 2 spot, I got the United States of America. Americans have some great fighters from John Jones, Sean Strickland, Sugar Sean, Max Holloway, even Dan Ige, Bryce Mitchell. There's so many people who represent the USA in fight, so they have a vast number of people. A lot of people who represent the USA aren't fully like American. Like I know Brian Ortega also represents the USA, but people could say he's Mexican and stuff like that. It's kind of hard to like decipher like who like fully represents America and USA. But what I do know, the people who do represent it and have that flag next to their name, they are very elite, very accomplished fighters. So yeah, the United States of America, it's no surprise because I feel like the USA has one of the best facilities, which is why you see people train in the USA even if they're from different regions, because they feel like the money put into USA gyms and all this is like a little bit ahead of like some other countries, maybe like other countries outside of the US, like maybe in Africa or et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, not surprised that a lot of American fighters have been champion and a lot of American fighters are accomplished. The only American champion right now, I believe, is John Jones, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, because Sugar Sean lost his belt, so I think it's only John Jones right now. So, which is crazy, but like, listen, times are changing, bro. USA, Americans used to run the UFC, but I feel like times are changing, and I feel like people are starting to develop, and other countries are getting their shine. But I'll still say USA is the top 2, which leaves us with the number 1 spot, which is Russia. Russia has taken over the UFC. There's a lot of people who hate the Russian fighters because they're really good and people don't like seeing them win. And another thing about Russians, they have like a really good win to loss ratio. You rarely see them lose. Like for the best Russians, you just rarely see them lose. Not any other country has that. Of course, you have people like Islam Makhachev, Ankalaev, Peter Yan, Hamza Chimaev, Umar Nurmagomedov, Mazar Evloev. All these guys have really good win to loss ratios, or some of them have no losses at all. And I feel like it just stems from their fight style, their discipline. I don't know. It could be deeper. They're very like religious people. That could have some kind of play some kind of tune to this. So I feel like Russians, as far as the UFC goes today in 2024, they are clearly the best fighters in the world. They have the best fighting in the world. They have the best styles in the world. Some of them use sambo styles, wrestling styles. Some of them are elite strikers like Peter Yan, Magomed Ankalaev, etc., etc. Some of them are crazy wrestlers like Hamza, Umar. Some of them are just a full package like Islam Makhachev, who does everything at the high level. I really think Islam Makhachev's going to retire the GOAT. I don't think it's like a secret of any sort. I really just think he's the best. So, yeah. I feel like Russia is a clear #1 spot for this list. And that's it for the rankings, bro. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know how you guys ordered it, bro. I really just feel like some of these are close, but I feel like there's no doubt and no debate that Russia is actually the best country in the UFC. Simple. But that's it for me. See you next video, and God bless. 2, 3, 4.